All right. Okay, so we're recording now. So no cursing, foul language,
Oh, there's Mike
poor
right on
behavior.
cue.
We
The
now have
poor.
evidence. Oh,
I
and
made
Mike,
it.
yeah, you joined just in time. We were just
Oh,
talking shit about you. So
oh, good, good,
vanity.
good. Well,
Thanks for showing up, Notebook.
yeah. Well, I'm not surprised to hear that it was Tom, but I'm here. Thank you for waiting. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. We're like, the dude with all the questions is not here, but we understand. All right, so let's jump right into this. So basically what we're talking about here is having like dual user integration set up for Strata. So let's just go to a user, I think is the best way to start off this conversation. So the short answer is that like these two integrations are not going to interfere with each other. So let me just click on a user. So you can click on anybody, you can go to their properties page. And if you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see that everyone has, or anybody that was added to the system, or maybe they're added manually, but then we ran an integration with them on it. Once that happens, we attach this integration ID to that person. So this ID matches up the ID and the URL for that particular user integration. If you double click this, you can break their association with the integration. We typically do that for, sometimes employees will go from being a full-time employee to being a contract employee, in which case within that organization, they are no longer in the HRIS system. So they still need to be active in the LMS, but they're not coming over on the integration, so we don't want to deactivate them. So we oftentimes break their association with that integration by double-clicking this ID. But this is the ID that marries the user to their particular user integration. We can actually just kind of here. So we go to this integration.
Dave almost said, I feel like I'm at Amazon, but those dogs never barked. They were all business there.
All right, so as you'll see, same ID here. So whenever you create a new integration with new users on it, it's going to have a new integration ID, and like that's not going to have any negative impact on your current users that have a different user integration ID. So there's nothing to worry about there. They can both be set up as definitive. They're not going to interfere with one another. It's just a brand new user file. So does that answer number one clearly?
Yes, I think so. So we can get them both set up. We can enable them both set as definitive. So I think the issue that I was kind of concerned about was setting up one data feed before the other data feed is set up, and just making sure that the existing, there are like 9 inside track users in there right now that are just not part of that data feed for the next, it won't be part of any data feed for the next like 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Do I need to uncheck that definitive checkbox in that time period to make sure that they aren't deactivated when that?
No, because since those users are not associated with that data feed, and did they come over on that data feed or no? Did you manually create them? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let me see if I can actually. So I'm on the advanced filter on the users list. So you can actually just go here. We have user integration, which is their user integration ID as a column option. Let's just do is null. All right. So these are the 9 people you're talking about right here. So just go ahead and hit edit. All right, so if I scroll down, you'll see that they don't have an integration ID attached to them. So they're not going to be affected by that other one. Give me a quick second.
And Dave, that filter is probably going to be a good route for food. Instead of using a custom field for food, if they know the integration value of that second feed, that separate feed for just the food team, that could work. Tamara, are you back on?
Yeah, I'm here.
So is that user integration filter available on groups and all other types?
That integration ID?
The filter for the integration ID when you had it up earlier.
I think that it is because it's on the users table, I believe.
Okay.
So
because that may free up a custom field for me, because I was bringing in a second integration, and
let me see here. So it's not on. I don't see it. Branding.
Okay. All right.
Not
So I mean,
there,
okay.
but it's on the user file itself.
Okay.
Like, I'm sorry, on the user's report.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, so you can like just keep your integration as is. You don't need to make any changes there. When you create that new integration, it's going to get a new integration ID for those users. And so going forward, they can both be set as definitive. And you know, if somebody is removed from that file, then their profile will be deactivated as per that integration that's associated with that user. They will not like interact with each other or have any negative impact on each other. So are there any other settings or considerations to take into account when we set up the second user data integration for InsideTrack? Not really. The only other consideration is that actually like, additional user fees actually cost the client more money. So anything beyond the standard one user integration needs to pass through billing so they can take that into account. I think the primary implication is because it takes up, you know, some data on our end and requires some annual maintenance on our end as well that we have to account for. So that does have to pass through billing. And then, so question 3, are there any restrictions on the number of data feeds that can be set up for a single account? No, I think it's just a matter of, like, I don't think we ever really have done more than 2 user integrations, but there can certainly be more. And then I don't know of any accounts that maybe have more than, like, I would say 5 to 7 tops integrations period. And that's like us maybe receiving some enrollment data or exporting enrollment data plus having multiple user feeds. There's no limit, but I think if for some reason it gets like into the double digits, like just being mindful of our nightly processes and just making sure that timing is right. And that all that makes sense. But as far as performance and us being able to handle those integrations, there's no limitation there. Maybe the only limit on the client's part is the cost of it all.
Okay, that's good to know. I was chatting with Abby, and I think that the use case was sort of, I guess, what to recommend as a best practice, where, you know, somebody was saying, okay, you know, we're interested in an Exceed where our clients are enterprise level clients, and would we then go in and set them up each as a branding org within the site, each with their own data feed, or is it a best practice to say, well, really, you should have a different account for each of those,
Right.
each of those things. So I think what I'll tell her, she's not on the call, is she? No, she's,
Abby, no, she's fine.
So I'll let her know. It's dependent on the on sort of the use case. If we're talking like double digits as far as numbers, you know, maybe we'll recommend, you know, an account for everybody rather than a branding org for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it all comes down to like the structure of their account maybe, and like I don't know like the specifics of what they're doing, what they're trying to do. Yeah. I think usually when we recommend a secondary account, it's when they have like an internal versus an external user population. That's more of a security thing than it is, you know, like a performance or data management thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, like if there was one account that was, you know, like I said, like enterprise, it's for internal employees, they just happen to have a whole lot going on in terms of user integrations, and maybe they're exporting, you know, enrollment records, and we're importing stuff like that. Doesn't weird me out. I think that's perfectly fine. But if it's, you know, a public population and then like an internal population and that kind of thing, then that's when we kind of want to go the 2 account route.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was super helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to walk me through that at least.
You're welcome.
Hey,
And I'll go ahead. Yeah, I'm gonna open the floor for any more questions. Is that you, Russell?
It's Damon.
Oh, Damon. You just sound like me. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Two intelligent dudes. Makes sense. Let's see. At what point does a manually added user become associated with an integration? Maybe you touched on that.
I did a little bit, but didn't really go into detail. So if you manually create somebody like those 9 users that Mike has here, and then let's say 2 weeks from now, we get this user file, as long as the user's code matches up with the user's manually created profile, when you first run that integration, that integration ID will then be attached to that manually created user, and they'll be associated with that file.
Okay, even if there's no other changes to the user record?
Right. Yep, it can be the same user data, just as long as the codes match up on the manually created profile and the row on the integration, they'll match up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then if for some reason we have 2 integrations that touch the same user, I don't know if that's even a possible scenario, but if that's the case, would the integration ID just keep changing each time?
Yeah, that'll be rough. And I would say if that is a thing, then like fix it. Basically, like that person should only be on one file.
One file. Okay.
Now,
I don't even know if that's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is only true of like these recurring integrations. So like, let's say somebody's on an integration file and for some reason, like in the middle of the day, you need to run a user update. Like that's not going to change their integration ID. Like that's just going to update them that one time. And then the nightly integration will take over again and, keep updating that user as appropriate.
Okay.
I thought this person's name was Bean Bath. I just actually read it. Any more questions regarding user integrations? Cool. So it looks like this recorded, which is awesome. So I will upload this to Drive and then send it out to you guys for review if you ever need this information ever again, or ping me in Slack or email.
Awesome. Thank you again so much.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for joining. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.